I don't think change is going to completely happen just through hashtags and social media, but it starts with you. Really, what is the core of this is like I know now, and it's my belief that you have to become the instrument. Like, of course, we need change to happen on a broader scale, but it has to start with you. And I think when you become that instrument of trying to live your message, whatever that is, that's what kind of ripples, as I mentioned, and that's why I think kind of changes heart by heart.
Hello and welcome to another episode of For Soul's Sake, a conversation in which we bring you the best in the world of wellness, in philanthropy, in trying to create transformative experiences of mind, body, soul. And today we've got an amazing guest, someone who I spotted on Instagram, saw the amazing work he's doing, and I just started peering into the amazing world of Joshua Coombes, who is a true trailblazer, and I mean it, and an advocate for change. It was during a chance encounter on the bustling streets of London that everything changed. A conversation with a homeless man revealed to Joshua the power of a simple haircut in boosting self-esteem and restoring dignity. Inspired by this encounter, Joshua made a life-changing decision. He embarked on a mission to provide haircuts for the homeless in London, one person at a time. Little did he know that this simple act of kindness would soon become a global movement. The hashtag Do Something for Nothing movement was born, inspiring countless hairdressers and volunteers to join the cause and make a difference in their communities. He has since collaborated with organizations tackling homelessness to provide comprehensive support to those in need. He's advocated for systemic changes, calling on governments and policymakers to address the root cause of homelessness. His passion and authenticity were undeniable, drawing support from influential figures, celebrities, and philanthropists. Josh is now an accomplished author and speaker, sharing his journey and learnings across schools, institutions, and more. Josh's story is a testament to the fact that we all have the potential to be agents of positive change, one haircut at a time. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. You said you've taken like 26 stops to get here, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Radhika. Really appreciate you having me. Thanks for that beautiful intro.
It's not me, it's the team. I'm just reading off the script.
I'm going to clip that and use that for my own purposes.
Do it.
But no, seriously, really, really happy to be here. Thanks for getting in touch. Appreciate it.
It's an honor, deep honor and privilege to have you here. That chance encounter where you met that homeless person, I'm sure you've shared that story a million times, but I want to hear it. I want to know, like, you were just like busy on your phone. I'm just imagining you like hipster vibes, like walking through London. You see someone home, so you stop just out of a chance. How did that chance encounter come about?
Well, yeah. So, this is something that I guess stories sort of evolve over time, not that they change, but I suppose different moments kind of come up for you. So I'm always happy to talk about that. I think it's, it's interesting to go back to 2015 when I started, doing this and when that first encounter happened. I think it was like a lot of people, feeling quite compassionate towards an issue that we all see every day, that has been rising for a long time, homelessness in all of the cities and towns that we live in, whether that be here in the UK, in Europe, or in the US. And it came from, I think, a curiosity really of wanting to find out more about people's lives who can often be kind of the statistics that we see on the news. It can often be, these news articles that don't, kind of do more to make us feel connected to these lives that are getting lived behind this issue. So I was walking past people doing those things I could do each day, which was, dropping a few quid for somebody, or maybe buying somebody a sandwich from Tesco if I had a bit more time. And this one day I was actually waiting for my bus, and I saw somebody outside of a cash point, it was, and outside of a supermarket, and I had about 5-6 minutes until my bus came. I had my scissors, my clippers and everything in my rucksack, because what I'd do is sometimes after work I'd go to do a home visit for a client to try and make a bit of extra pocket money. And I had this conversation with this person and remembered I had my things with me, and this person clearly, their beard was a gentleman, probably a similar age to me, and his beard and his hair had grown out, and I asked if he wanted a haircut. I didn't think about it too much, to be really honest. Actually, what happened was just remembering I had my things, asking him if he wanted a haircut, and then he said yes, and the moments then followed. And thinking back to that, I'm really glad I didn't let that internal dialogue get in the way of that experience of whether this would be top priority if somebody's needs, clearly who might have 100 other things they're thinking about in survival mode, wondering where they're going to sleep that night, etc., etc. but this guy said yes, and after that we really got to know each other. I sat down on his level, set up my things, and sort of made it up as I went along. And what happened there, with the shift that took place, I think for me on a personal level was the most important part of that. And the reason I say that is because the haircut clearly meant something to this person. It was a great way to be able to restore a bit of dignity, to see this person's shoulders lift up. You could visibly see this person kind of, when they looked in the mirror at the end, almost recognized that somebody they hadn't seen for a while. It was quite like a transformation.
You can even see it on your Instagram stories. I even just saw it yesterday when you did the before and after, and you could just see this visible difference in their demeanor, the kind of like their facial expressions. And I'll be honest, I had thought about it. I was like, maybe he tells them to smile like in the after photo.
But
they don't, right?
No, I try and...
It's authentic.
It's all... Yeah, I mean, for me, I know that each person, in each interaction now is so different, and I don't try and force things with that. I think at the beginning I wasn't documenting it straight away anyway, because it was something that came later. But to begin with, it was just seeing that transition. Sometimes it's big smiles and you can see that somebody's a lot happier, but oftentimes it's the subtle things, the lines in somebody's face relax, somebody you can feel energetically when somebody kind of just relaxes a bit more into their body. And this first interaction, what shifted in me was, the haircut was great, and I saw how much it meant to them, but it was a choice I'd made, which was, instead of going to put 100 quid in my back pocket that I really needed, actually, I wasn't sitting on a great deal of savings or much disposable income each month, but instead I'd made the decision to go out and spend my time with somebody for free. And on paper, obviously, in a lot of the schools of thought and the ways that we're taught in modern society, that's not the best option.
Compassion is just a theory. It's like, being kind to others is just something that's written in religious texts and spiritual texts, but who actually lives compassionately and takes a moment like that? I'll be honest, if I'm just trying to picture myself standing at the bus stop. You had 6 minutes to spare. You got your stuff in the bag. Mm-hmm. Like, say for example, if it was me, I had, I don't know, a harmonium in my bag. I've got 6 minutes to wait. I'd probably just go, no, let me just scroll through Instagram. And do you know? Have you kind of dug into that, like the trigger of how to bring about compassion? Or
I think it happens for everybody in very different ways, and I think it happens at certain points in our life for certain reasons. Oftentimes in moments of crisis, where we kind of remove what is this veil of reality that can feel so rigid sometimes, who we are from the outside, the external, whether that be you and I sat here. I mean, of course, I can't for 1 minute not honor the diversity that exists and, who we are and our identity, who we are in this world. But I think I was at this point where I was searching for more than that, and I knew that was bubbling me before this moment, this interaction. And I was happy in my life. I was doing things. I enjoyed my job as a hairdresser, working in a salon. You're up close and personal with people every day. You've got to enjoy your job, I think, as in that profession. And I had social connections, going out to see my friends at the weekend, and whatever, going away where I needed, where I wanted to each year, when I had some holiday and some spare cash. But there was part of myself that I wasn't connected to. And I think it was sort of, when we talk about community, obviously we first of all think about our nuclear family, our friends, our social circle, but like our broader community, like the people who live around us who, might be strangers, and, that of course can start on your own street and people who live next door to you. But I was walking past people each day who, they're human beings, and there are other beings living within the vicinity of where I live. And it was a direct problem that I'd see each day on the way to work. That moment I think came from a feeling that perhaps been building for a while. And I'm so glad it happened, because it did change a lot of things for me. I mean, there's something about spending time with a complete stranger. How often does that really happen? I spent an hour and a half with this person, maybe 2 hours, because cutting hair was obviously a lot different on the concrete, on the curb, rather than in the salon with everything around you. And how often do you do that with somebody? And I started to go out and do that more from that first interaction. That sort of became a pattern of every day I had, and for the next 3 to 6 months doing this, not just in London but other cities in the UK. I had a trip to Paris booked, and the year after that a trip to America, so about 6 months later. and I decided to take my things with me and start doing it in different places. And that's when things started to really grow, and I started to begin documenting these moments, because it's a sensitive situation. The last thing I think you want to do is put a camera in somebody's face when you're thinking about any issue that's very sensitive, but it would always follow the connection. And I felt that this was important because it was a reminder of something that was much deeper than the haircut or homelessness. It was about connection and the way we spend our time with one another, being present and showing up for the people around us.
Incredible. I want to ask you about something that I think maybe you'll relate to, and maybe you can shed some light on. Something that is an experience for me is in sharing something that is trying to uplift people. I regularly have to check myself around the validation I receive because of that. And I know if it wasn't filmed, it didn't happen, right? So all my events are filmed. And even though I know it's like, there's a little part of me that goes, does it really need to be? But I know it needs to happen because that's how the conversation spreads. That's how awareness grows. That's how education happens, etc. But there is also a thing that's bubbling in me now where like I'm seeing this growth in my social media following and everything's starting to happen there. And then I'm also going, I don't know, like, am I doing it just for that? And how do you kind of combat that? How do you kind of navigate that is my question, because you've been doing this way longer than I have in terms of with the following, with the reach, etc.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate not doing it for validation?
Sure. Yeah, it's a really, really good question, I think. And it's an important one because, you know, of course, an act of compassion, of kindness, of love, and, you know, trying to just live in that spirit each day. These things happen every single day with nobody watching, and that's what makes the world like tick. You know, I mean, it's not about, you know, filming or showing that to the world for, I think, any other reason. The best way to answer that is to check in with your intention. And I think for me, intention's everything. And I know that it's really important for us to have reminders of what is good in the world and other people to connect with who have similar values. And it can I don't even want to say inspire people, because it's more about it can ripple that way. You know, I think these moments when you see them and you're scrolling through social media, we need positive, uplifting moments to see, and I need that in my own life. So I think the decision to start putting this stuff out there, it wasn't an easy one. You know, at the time, I think I wrestled with that a lot. Is Instagram the right sort of platform for you know this? And you know, I just put it in the safekeeping of the reaction, really, which was just trying to, I think the line to tread carefully is always checking with your intention. And for me, just practicing non-attachment as well in a healthy way of you know, you can get a love heart and you can get somebody saying, wow, this is amazing what you're doing. But I can't receive that for me. I can only receive that as an appreciation or it's something that somebody else is connecting to from afar, which is just a feeling of love. And they're seeing it in action in another way, but they're relating and their heart's opening to a feeling of love. And the same way as if somebody's going to, you know, give me a negative comment about something, or, you know, have an idea of how they see what I'm doing and maybe comment negatively, I have to be just neutral and not attached to either one of those. So it is a practice, but I know that really, Radhika, what I try and do with the work that I do from early on, I realized is I don't have much of a political conversation around the work I do, because that's all in the mind, you know. And how can we shift from the mind to the heart? Because the heart doesn't know Tory, Labour, Republican, Democrat, red, blue, whatever. It, you know, when it opens and we can have a conversation from this place, from the heart space, we have just so much more, I think, chance of like connecting. And, you know, the polarization and everything that we see right now in the world, I realize that having this human conversation is what I want to do. When I go out and I meet people on the street, man, woman, young, old, different backgrounds, different upbringings, all different life experience, I try and say, hey, this is somebody, I met them today. You know, I start off with their name. I tell a bit of somebody's story. You can see somebody's eyes, face. You're connecting to a human being. And this issue, as much as we need political change, and of course, like I do try and advocate for those things, I think in the meantime, it's very important to, to put things out there, I think that we can all connect to, that kind of that don't make this politicized in that way.
While you're speaking, there's an analogy that came to mind where in a night sky there is a full moon, and we have a choice at all moments whether we choose to look at the full moon or look at the dark night sky. And in the same way, we can choose to look at what divides us and what polarizes us, what makes us consider our differences, what we consider to be our dislikes, and I like it this way, you like it that way, that means I'm better than you, I'm higher than you. We can choose to look at the dark night sky, or we can choose to look at the moon, which is that there are so many similarities and experiences that we each and every one of us, despite our external differences, we all have this need for love. We all have this innate need to love and to be loved. And I think that innate need for love and to be loved, if it's not satisfied, then what's the point of looking at the dark night sky? You know, like let's focus on that core thing. And I guess what I wanted to know next was, see, like whenever I go to the barbershop, I almost feel like it's a therapy session. I don't know about the other lads that are sitting in there, but I always feel like I'm having a therapy session. Like it's just a conversation. He's not going to care whether I'm having a problem with my wife or, you know, this problem with my child or this, that. It's just a nice chance to just blow off some steam. How do you navigate the kind of hardcore stories that you experience on the streets? Because I can imagine they're not kind of the light combos that I'm talking about in my barbershop experience.
Yeah.
You're almost like semi-barber, semi-psychiatrist.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, because I knew my role as a hairdresser when I was working back in the salon, or like you said, a barbershop. It can play such a pivotal, it can be such a pillar in a community for people to go and be and to share. And it might not from the outside look like somewhere you're going to share all of your troubles and your woes and your problems, but I think hairdressers, barbers, it's sort of part of being in the chair. There's a trust that you have to kind of almost give up when you're sat there in that chair to the person behind you. And I knew that when I was working in my job, but out on the street, that comes into play a lot. I think there's something really important about where I go to people on their level, where they are in their environment, rather than somebody coming somewhere for a service. Right. It's a different dynamic. I'm coming sort of, hey, like you're right here, I'm coming to have a chat and hang out, and we're going to set up literally where you were sitting anyway. So, you know, they are in some ways, they're in an environment they're used to, let's not say comfortable, but, you know, I'm wrapping a gown around somebody whilst they're looking out on the world, and it's not this one-on-one, I'm sat opposite you, which I honestly can find quite intense sometimes. I mean, like, this is great, I'm having a really good time right now, and you can tell when somebody's really receiving you, but especially thinking back to when I was a kid, wow, I used to find it really hard in school, and another conversation in high school, like really even making eye contact with people older than me for a long time. And I see this nervousness, and I see the walls, and I see the distrust, feel the distrust sometimes to a lot of the world around them by the people that I meet, people who've been downtrodden on the world for quite some time, and for various different reasons. And you can kind of almost just be where they are, and they're looking out on the world, and it does open things up, you know, and it's not intentional, but people do open and start talking about their lives. And I think what I do is I've just learned over the years just to try and sit with whatever's happening and not project too much of my feelings of what's going on, to not run too quickly to rescue a moment that might be, you know, something very difficult somebody's talking about, some experiences they've had, because I've learned that sympathy is a natural emotion. Our heart goes out to people, but it's not that helpful. I don't want to project too much of what might be my sadness or hearing how difficult it is for somebody. I just want to sit and be and show up and listen. Wow. And it doesn't mean, of course, I'm a human, I take things on, but I know that there's something more important I can do there, which is just to sit with that. And be exactly. And, you know, honestly, yesterday when I got to London, and I always take my things with me in my bag, and I met a couple of people, and I was reflecting on it afterwards, and I always think it would be so easy for me to concentrate on the things that are orbiting a person's life from the outside, which sometimes, especially when you think about homelessness, you talk about homelessness, they can stigmatize this issue so much before we kind of see somebody's spirit, somebody's soul beyond like all of these things that exist from the outside. Yeah, I spend a lot of time with people who are right in the thick of substance abuse, addiction, mental health issues. I mean, yesterday I was with people who, after I cut their hair, yeah, they had to go and score. And I mean, I say had to because, you know, I mean, people who are, if they don't get that fix, like they feel sick and they're not okay. And getting high is a distant memory. It's about regulating and feeling okay, quote unquote. And you know, you can see somebody from the outside as a junkie or a crackhead, and I spend time with people who could be labeled with all of these things, but you get beneath these layers when you spend enough time with somebody, and you see the humanity, and you see the innocence of that person when they were a younger person who they still have these hopes and dreams, and underneath it's just dormant, or it's wrapped up in so much right now. And this is why I talk about, you know, time and the way we can spend it with one another. If people are listening to this, okay, I'm a hairdresser, it's a very specific skill, and if you're thinking, well, what can I do? Maybe this is something you're compassionate about too. Really, this gift we all have, it's universal, our time, the way that we can go out and give that to one another, because you never know when somebody's hope or the light in their life it's been dampened so much, or like imagine it's the horizon and hope's so far away, it's this little blink of light just coming through on the horizon. If you can bring that closer for somebody, if you can give a little bit more perspective, another vantage point, you show up for somebody in that way, it can do so much. And I've seen it. You know, of course it doesn't fix someone's problems, it doesn't give them a house, or it doesn't give them everything they need in their life to be completely like secure, but you know, it's a reminder of something that, as you mentioned, is inherent. It's something that's inherent, I think, for all of us. So, yeah, I see the way that people come out of their shell, and I try my best to see beyond those layers, because I think that's what gets us really stuck sometimes. And, you know, Do Something for Nothing is expanded to, yeah, it's just a movement. I don't run a not-for-profit or a charity. It's just been a way that other people have got involved. And, you know, it can be, there's been yoga teachers who've gone into drug rehabilitation centers to volunteer their time, to get people moving, get people back in their bodies, feeling those good brain chemicals again. There's been students who've gone in to spend time in an elderly person's home and doesn't have any family who come in and see them, you know, just to have lunch with this person. And, you know, just other actions, people greeting a family who have recently been granted asylum, who've had to flee from their country, invite them around for dinner, say hello, share. You know, there's so many ways we can commune, there's so many ways we can connect. And yes, I don't think change is going to completely happen just through hashtags and social media, but it starts with you. Really, what is the core of this is like, I know now, and it's my belief that you have to become the instrument. Like, of course, we need change to happen on a broader scale, but it has to start with you. And I think when you become that instrument of trying to live your message, whatever that is, that's what kind of ripples, as I mentioned, and that's what I think kind of changes heart by heart.
Yeah. I mean, I want to urge everyone that's listened to that piece, that was for me very, very moving, to just not wait and just wait for an ideal moment. Like, it could either be one day or it could be day one. Like, you could either say, one day I'll live with more compassion, one day I'll decide to give something, even, you know, because I've got enough. But day one is also today. It could start from today. And I love how you kind of like contextualize it as, you don't have to be a barber, you don't have to be this and that. You just, as you are, whoever you are, find a way in which you can.
Yeah, and people are already doing it as well. You know, what I'm doing is nothing new. Do Something for Nothing is just a few words that I came up with, which sounded kind of like a cool way to describe this. Cool. The truth is, right, yeah, exactly. And the truth is, it's only looking at the money transaction side of it, because it's not for nothing. I get a tremendous amount of you know, it's taught me more the last 7 years spending time with people in this way than I think I could have got from reading any book. And I think people are already doing this. You know, I mean, there's incredible people who are deciding, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, like you said, I love that. I'm not going to wait around for one day. I'm going to use, maybe it's your skills, the things you were good at, but just reclaiming like what community looks like for you, what what you can do with the time you have, because it's cliche, but we do know that it's a very fleeting time we have here, and I don't think about it in a way of getting bogged down by needing to know what the solution is. Like, I know that I need to spend my energy doing the things I can do rather than focus on the things I can't. And it can be incredibly overwhelming. I get it. Like, when you are scrolling through Twitter and reading news articles, you're thinking about all of the things we face, the weight of the world. I go into schools, I give talks a lot about this. I speak to young people who are more, in some ways, active more than ever and have all this incredible energy to go out and give to the world, but are also feeling very overwhelmed. And it's about like removing the shackles and focusing on the things you can do and starting with that, because that might not be change, today, tomorrow, but you build on that feeling, you build on that and kind of.
I find that really interesting that you said that there's kind of innocence or a desire to give when you're speaking in schools. Mm-hmm. Do you think life hardens us? Do you think it kind of like makes us more, this is normal to see someone that's in pain, substance abuse, trying to find normality, homelessness, etc. No, that's normal, that's fine, it's just part of life, Do you think we get hardened, and do you think there's a need for us to strip back the layers regularly enough to just go, hold on. How is that normal?
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I say exactly what you've said. We're in this time where so many things have become normalized. Yeah. You're right. I think it is. I think it's become normalized, and also life comes and it brings. I understand as well. I grew up in a single parent family. My mum wouldn't have had time to do what I'm doing right now. Like, she was looking after 3 kids by the time she was 24, and everyone's reality is so different. You might be chasing your career and have a really demanding job, or you might be trying to put food on the table doing 60 hours a week for your family. So look, there's all kinds of reasons why you can, how much time you can give. But I think it is what you said. Things have become normalized, and also we in modern Western society, we live in a very, I think it's just a symptom when we see things like homelessness of the times we're living in, so in our individual world bubble, accumulating what we need, what we are told is an equal success.
What is our need.
Yeah, and also we've just become much more isolated as people living in even bigger cities, So yeah, it's a few different factors I think that come into play with it all. But the practice I really believe is peeling away the layers, trying to unpick your conditioning, because we're all products of our environment, and it's not a bad thing. We grow up, we become, like you said, we become hardened by the world, or we just become who we are in the spacesuit, you know what I mean? And who we are in this kind of somebody-ness. And it's very easy to to just walk around in the world like that for a long time. And for me, I've been on my own journey recently of just trying through this work and through my own self-work of recognizing that, of course I have to honor who we are from the outside, but I can't meet somebody not from a place where I'm trying to see them as, or at least connect on a soulful level and get beyond the layers. And I think when you start to do that, it's a practice, and you build on that. And that doesn't just look like, for me, homelessness. It looks like somebody who votes different than me, somebody who has very different life ideals, opinions, visions, values, beliefs. I don't want to get caught up in any of that anymore, of the division of it all. It doesn't mean I condone certain behaviors. It doesn't mean I still don't have my opinions or the ways that I
recognize that's conditioning.
Yeah, this exactly. And I don't think it can be just some. I think if it's all of us or none, I really believe that. The more I get deeper with all of this, the more I realize that words like empathy, love, compassion, it's full spectrum. It's not just for somebody who's being persecuted and somebody who's in a vulnerable position. No, it's for somebody who might, from the outside, as I said, like be living a very comfortable life, might have accumulated a lot of wealth, might be sitting on that wealth and not distributing it to anybody. But how do I don't want to harbor negativity about the person. I want to try and understand. I want to try and still have a conversation with that person. I don't want to close doors if I can help it.
It's powerful. Like, I love this point that, this is another practice that people can take away, that people often ask, what do I do if I'm going to go on holiday and I've got a bit of space now, what should I do? And one of the things I recommend is go into solitude. It's different from being alone. You've chosen to be in solitude, and start to unpick your conditionings and start to realize that you're more than this body, more than this mind. And that's the beginning of kind of spiritual realization. When people say, oh, what's the goal? Start by just being conscious. Start by being aware that you're more than just your conditionings, more than your likes and dislikes, more than this mind. Now let's go a step deeper, more than the body. Then this process of kirtan and bhakti, that's what I share, that's my spiritual practice. That's all about getting to that core of realizing that you're a spirit soul and that you are a loving being, and that your purpose on this earth is to love, to be a loving service, both to divinity and also to your fellow human beings. And I think that principle of starting with unpicking away your conditioning, it's quite a scary journey for people, because we've built this narrative, or many people have built a narrative where it's, this is my bubble, this is how it's all coated, these are the different layers, these are my goals within that bubble. But when you pick away the conditioning and you realize, oh crap, like what am I building this for? All of these zeros are eventually going to go in the ground with me. Like, there's nothing that's going to last beyond maybe even 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of all this hard work that we're putting into building those zeros in the bank account. It's just a narrative. And starting with unpicking conditioning, it's hard work. Look, listen, if I'm looking at the camera now, I'm speaking into the mic. If it's gonna be hard work to unpick your conditioning, but it's the most necessary work to see that there is so much unity in this diversity that we live in.
It's beautiful, brother. It's really, really, and your work, I nearly caught you. We bumped into each other at the festival recently. And I've seen your kirtan and what you do with all of this. And it's, all of these things are, there's so many different practices, so many different ways of getting to just presence and just to be, and just to hopefully establish like a deeper connection with yourself and then the people around you. And
your yoga is with scissors, mine is with a mantra.
Yeah, and there's so many different medicines for other people. It might be ultramarathon running. It might be, getting and walking in nature. It might be, as you said, like practices of all different kind of like, with the body and kind of, and accessing kind of, I think for me, I know that however you get there, it can get all wrapped up, right? You said spirituality is something that, I've had to really find and go on a journey myself. And I think these things are just, you could look at it almost in a way of what's the path of least resistance? And that's kind of really where I'm at right now. Like, I don't want to resist anymore. I don't want to go against the grain anymore. It doesn't mean you're going to get on with anybody, that you're going to agree with everybody. But I don't want to carry around with me what I think I did for a while, which is externalizing anymore and kind of looking outside to blame another, to hold anger. And of course, the world is the way it is, and there's people whose hearts are all locked up to this stuff. And I just know that still, though, I do not want to put my energy there. I want to put my energy in love. I want to put my energy in actioning that love. I want to put my energy in connecting with people around me. I still have shitty days where I'm dealing with my own stuff and I'm not the best version of myself, but I'm trying to go back to that place where I can, and it feels a lot lighter. So that's almost what I'm trying to say. My point is, your incentives could be so many things, but that's the way, what you're talking about of the practices, like removing the weight, like the getting to somewhere where you can tread lighter in this world. And I think that everybody, wants that at the core of things. Yeah.
Wow. I feel like we could just sit on that and just end there. That's an incredible point. It's no point just wrapping up your energy and trying to like blame the institutions and blame and feeling that heaviness because of that blame and that frustration. Choose the path which is lighthearted, which is going to make you feel, how do you say? The path with least resistance.
Yeah. And it's literally like, I get it. Somebody, I say I want to watch the news. Like, I watch something and I see it. and I feel the pain, I feel the sadness, I might feel the anger. These things are all there.
Of course, yeah.
But then it's then it's the choice. It's the
This is it.
how long do I want to stay there? How long do I want that to perpetuate and circulate and percolate with my body and be kind of with me? Like, do I choose sitting on that and tweeting about it and getting angry and whatever? Like, or I go, okay, I go out and that means I need to go out and be what I want to see in the world. And it starts with the really simple things, man. Honestly, the bus driver this morning before I got on the tube, just it's that person who's just getting beeped and tapped constantly. Wake them up. Say like, I'm just saying the way. Say, hey, good morning. Good morning. And you see somebody go, oh, I'm back to human rather than robot. Just driving the bus for minimum wage an hour, doing this 12-hour shift. These things, it's just an energy.
Breathes life into me.
Exactly.
I've made it a habit of, even though it does exhaust me sometimes, I just love to wake people. It's exactly that. So my wife thinks it's a little bit annoying, but whenever we're out, even if it's the restaurant waiter, the person that's scanning the food at Tesco, I want to get to know that person and just give them a little something. Just like that's part of my service. It's like, okay, I've been gifted so much in this lifetime, and this ability to go, hello. I think it's not an uncommon gift. I think we all have it. But just being able to just consciously see people for who they are and not what you want them to be in that moment.
Yeah.
See them for who they are, not what you want them to be in that moment. It's powerful.
Yeah.
It builds so much empathy, builds so much love. If you want to be more loving, start by just saying to someone, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, legit, like, how's it going? How's your day been? Good?
Yeah.
Shift been all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Start peeling. And then by the time they're finish scanning your food, you can leave them with a smile. Just have a great day. I'll see you later. Have a great one. I'm sure I'll see you around.
Yeah. And that really is, somebody could listen to that and think we're talking here about these kind of like these loving actions and different things, and again I'm just trying to get in the mind of maybe the pessimist here and saying how is this going to really make a difference? But if you really want to measure that, maybe you can't, but genuinely we are living in a time where it is an epidemic of loneliness. People suicide rates are higher than they've ever been before. People are feeling more isolated than they've been before. It can be the difference sometimes. You don't know what's going on with another person. And these moments you're talking about, beautiful, just showing up in that, even if it is while somebody's scanning your food at the checkout, whatever, it's, you don't know when somebody thinks back to that later that night. You don't know what that gives somebody in their lowest moments, a reminder. And that they matter, that they're seen and they feel heard, and it's a healthy thing, I think, for you and that person.
And worst case scenario, it's helping us.
Right.
To just be a bit more loving.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
The person that gets purified the most, like people are always like, oh, you're doing so much, so amazing that you're sharing so many different events and stuff. I'm like, if I'm totally honest, it's probably helping me a shit ton more than it is a lot of people. And that's great. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the purification.
Yeah, 100%. And, everything we've been speaking about today, for me, I think that's a really important point. Like of course, the work that I've done this in many different places now, different countries, worked with different organizations, and this is my life's work. Whatever path I'm on, I'm following whatever feels like the authentic, like my soul's path to continue. I don't know where I'm going to be next year. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. It's going to look so different for every person, but this is, of course it's for you, whatever this is, whatever this looks like. And as I said, it might not be, we're not just talking about going out and giving your time to people in a certain position. It's about trying to live with a lens of kind of love, like a loving lens, and looking through that at this world, and trying to come back to that and come back to those things we were talking about, the medicines, the practices, the things that bring you back to the moment. And it's I don't know, man. It's great. I feel positive because for all these you asked me earlier about, do I take this stuff on? And of course I do. But when you go out and you start doing these things, you connect with other people who have similar values. So you surround yourself with people who, you feel more positive about things, because I know amazing people who are, as you said, making not waiting around and getting out there and doing whatever it is that means something to them. So you surround yourself with that energy as a part of it. So of course, I get a lot out of the work that I do as well.
I'm really honored that we did this conversation, to be honest.
Me too, man. I'm super happy to chat. Like, I know we could be here for ages, but I just want to say...
Can you imagine, the hours coming up?
I know, man.
That's
I know.
incredible.
Yeah, it's...
we haven't talked about plant medicine and all the things that are going on in Mexico with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that stuff...
What do we do now?
Depends whether you want to open... I mean, I could do the elevator version of that, but, I mean, depends whether you want to open that or whether we've got time. Or not. I
feel like an episode 2 is on the cards.
Yeah, I'm easy. You know, that's something that in my own journey, recently working and traveling to Peru and a healing center there, and now more recently in Mexico, has been a really important part of healing some of the wounds that I needed to for me in a personal, from a personal standpoint. But yeah, it's a whole other.
I mean, I guess that was going to be, the closing question is, I always do these quick fire rounds. But it's kind of just to peel away the layers of the personal.
Sure.
The work you do is incredible, but then I want to know what's really going. Maybe we'll do long fire, medium fire. I don't know if that's a thing, but we'll make it up. What's something that you're curious about right now in your life?
Well, I think it stems from what I was just speaking about, which is I'm a student to working with more recently like plant medicine and specifically ayahuasca, and being part and being able to help facilitate on a couple of retreats recently. I'm so curious about the potential of what these medicines can bring moving forward in this world, whilst honoring and respecting how sacred and the indigenous roots of these medicines and these practices have to be honored in the traditional and have to be honored in like where they exist, in the communities they exist. And that has to be there, all of that infrastructure for sure. So that's again like another conversation. But I see this bridging of worlds happening already, especially in the Americas, definitely happening here in Europe as well. People kind of bringing these different modalities of healing, to penetrate a lot of the Western mind and the traumas we're experiencing that we're holding on to, and I think that. Yeah, I think I'm curious about that. I'm curious about how that's going to look in 20 years' time. Of course, we have many issues and like we have to do a lot to help this world in the meantime. But as far as an awakening that feels very prominent and backed up with ways to integrate these experiences, to integrate kind of these ways that we can heal. Maybe the studies were there in the 60s and 70s, but I think now in the world we're living in, I think it has a really, positive future for all of those things. So I'm super curious of how that's going to look in the years to come.
Yeah, I'm curious about it for another reason in that I'm an advocate of that which is the most blissful is already within. And I'm curious about how this is going to, because it's exactly what you said, like the indigenous practices remaining or being respected from where they're coming from. And I guess a whole conversation could open up here. But like Russell Brand says it famously that if it's not from within you, then something external to you cannot lift you higher than that's what's within. And so then I've talked about this with many, many guests, and I'm trying to understand it further, but I'm also curious about where this is going to go in the next 10, 20, whether it becomes another substance or whether it's respected for the indigenous practice that it is and remains so. I think, you know what, there is a danger where someone's going to capitalize on it and try and make it,
Of course, just like the
business.
Marijuana industry now in America. I mean, so my teacher, Maestro Sui, he is Shipibo Hila out of the Ucayali region in the Amazon basin in Peru. He talks about, when he talks about the plants, and he talks about the plant spirits, and he's dieted for years like these different trees and plants and been in isolation and solitude, forging this connection with these plants, as he calls them, these plant spirits, to then use to be able to help heal in a ceremonial setting, working with ayahuasca. And he talks about the wisdom of the plants being the purest because they are just receiving the light of the sun and the intelligence of the plants kind of, and also, the water and soil, they're of this earth and kind of part of of this incredible ecosystem. And I think for me, look, Radhika, I've had experiences when I was younger, like recreationally many times with drugs. I went through a period of time that I look back on now where I was quite regularly kind of, trying to, I think, get somewhere that it was perhaps masking some things I hadn't addressed in me, but also it was fun. You know, I mean, there's times where it was very much like a fun thing with friends and there was a lot of enjoyment there. But this is something very, very different. And I think that I was very aware when I started working with some of these plants, and specifically ayahuasca and ceremony, that is something very sacred, and you have no choice but to kind of, as part of that experience, kind of really feel that in a way that it's
recreational drug can.
Yeah, and then what you're saying, I think it feels like what it's doing is it is accessing what is already in you. But for some people, there's they're unaligned. There's distortions within them. There's distortions in the mind, but also so much they're carrying in the body through certain things that have happened to them. So what it's doing is stripping back and trying to penetrate, and you're energetically purging things so you can access what is within, which is your essence, which is the highest form of, like, your, let's not say highest, but it's just the authentic kind of being and creative self, like these parts of yourself that can sometimes be be very, very deep within somebody. But obviously, it's kind of, for me, is recognizing what's within is basically what I'm trying to say. But
the path may look differently for different people.
Exactly, and this is something that is so individual to each person. So there's as I mentioned earlier, there's a 100 ways of getting to this destination, and it's not for everybody. And one thing I would say, just as a way to wrap this up from what I was talking about, is with these experiences, it's so important to be trusting in being in an environment that holds them and supports them, and the preparation, as well as ceremony experience, as well as, most importantly, like the integration afterwards. You have to be in a place where you're
probably a mature experience.
Of course, like you're going into what has been described as spiritual surgery, right? And you've got to work with a surgeon who knows really and has experience in what they're doing to be able to come and practice this and stitch you up together so you can go back out in the world and navigate this, and support for that. So it is something that's not to be taken lightly. You have to be and feel ready for these experiences, and that's going to look different for everybody, those different modalities of what people are going to be drawn to.
Thank you. This has been an epic conversation.
This has been great, man. I know, man. I want to say as well, like, I know we just scratched the surface, but also sometimes with podcasts, I'm like, I feel like I was so many things I want to chat to you about and ask you about, and it's been all me.
No,
so
but you're a guest.
I know, but we'll keep in touch, man, because I'd love to connect on a level where I'm finding more about you and what you're up to as well.
That's very humble of you, but you're doing incredible things. And I wanted to give it a platform. And
Cheers, man.
People to know that there is this opportunity for them also. That it doesn't have to just be people that have a platform, but even day one is for you as well. I'm talking to the camera, I'm talking to all of the audience. Day one is for you as well. That this is your opportunity to consider, what can I do today that's for nothing, that is for someone else. Just deeply appreciate you. Deeply appreciate everything you're doing, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, brother.
To everyone that's listening, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of For Soul's Sake. If you enjoyed it, you know the drill. Give it a like, give it a share, drop a comment, send it to someone across the world. Spread the conversation further. If there was anything here that you felt triggered you, that made you feel more thoughtful, then write to us. Tell us what you're thinking about. Tell us what's kind of whirring around in your noggin. Want to hear all about it. See you on the next episode of For Soul's Sake. Sending you all lots of love. Adi Bol. For soul's sake, for soul.